All right. Welcome, friends. It's episode 30 with Tiger Talk Thursday, and we have volleyball star, former player, and coach. I'm going to pronounce her name, but I might get it wrong. Okay. We got Pri Piantadosi-Lima.
Got it.
All right. So I can't believe it. We started these episodes this summer with a mission and vision to support those suffering in silence, speaking to athletes all over the globe about their transitions after life after sport. Now, some players move on to different professions, coaching, or some have experienced tragedy, injury, retirement, or unforeseen circumstances that have forced them to hang up the jersey, and it's forced them to go down a road that they least expected. So we are sharing stories of athletes in order to help everybody know that you are perfectly normal. We are all human, and this is a community to help pick you up. So our guest today, I'm so excited, South Florida Beach Volleyball head coach. Now this is brand new as of June 6th of this summer, right?
Yeah, first ever head coach for the school program.
That's phenomenal. And this was by the VP of Athletics, Michael Kelly. So it's the Bulls Beach Volleyball. Huge accomplishment. I mean, you must be so proud. I'm just going to give a little bit of your background, and then you're going to do all the talking. So Pre has a stellar coaching career. She was in 2022 USAV Beach. She was Beach Club of the Year. 2021 Florida Region Outstanding Club Director. She develops high-level juniors and professional players. You produced 92 collegiate players. Were you aware of that stat?
And counting.
Yes, I know. That's so exciting. I actually have a volleyball athlete that I'm helping, and it's funny. I text her mom. I'm like, she's got to watch the video tonight. USAV Beach head coach, national team, development program from 2019 to present. Female junior coach of the year. I mean, like, the list goes on. I will copy and paste this all in the bio so you guys can read, but you have a 17-year professional career. So let's go back. I mean, the stats: Continental Cup, Olympic qualifier champion, most improved player. I mean, this goes on. Louisiana Lafayette Athletics Hall of Fame inductee. We are sitting amongst one pro athlete here, guys. So listen up, because the wisdom that's going to be shared. So let's go back to your life as an athlete.
Okay. Let's try to remember.
Were you into sports as a young child? Like, were you always into volleyball? How did you enter your sporting world?
Well, actually, I used to dance like, you go to dance like a little girl, ballet, and then I started doing Brazilian folk, and then we call it African dance. But then my specialty, I ended up doing most of my hours doing dancing flamenco dance.
Oh, cool.
Like the Spaniard dance with the castañolas, like all that stuff, and we did rehearsals. It was really cool. And then I used to play like volleyball in the streets in the parks in Brazil. As I was growing up, and I was like, oh, I kind of like that. And then my dad got me like a tryout day, and I loved it. And then I left dancing when I was 15 to start playing, which is really late in Brazil, and even nowadays now. But definitely in Brazil was really late to start at 15. But I got really lucky because I had incredible coaches and teammates, and I had to keep up, and I was good at keeping up.
Yeah, for sure. And then so what brought you into, so you play volleyball on the side, but what was kind of like the big break for you where you were kind of like, I'm pretty good at this, or you realized you had quite the talent?
It took a while for me to even think that I was good. I was always keeping up, right? So I started in volleyball in Brazil is huge. It's always been a force in the world in the sport. So all my idols were like untouchable, unattainable. I'm third world country. You just see them on TV and it's like, oh my goodness, you go watch them live. My teammates on my first club team, two of them were middles for the national team on our age group, and two of them were state team. So I was so far from everybody. So I never saw myself actually getting better. The next year, I ended up being a starter in another club because obviously they didn't need me with the caliber of the players they had in the team. So I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I know I got really good training. And the coaches were from the national team as well. So I went to the other team and I was like, already I started on my second year ever playing volleyball. And I was, okay, this is really cool. But then I knew that there were so many players on my position that were ahead of me that they were going pro. And by the time I was 17 or 18, I was seeing that I was not going to go pro. I started dabbling at 16, 17, 18 on beach, and I was getting good on beach. But back when, they didn't have all the youth competitions they have, the world youth competitions they have now. So even though like my best friend and I, we were undefeated in the state, she had a pro path more clear than mine to go play indoors professionally. So I got this offer to come to America and play college. And back in the day, that was like shooting your career on, on the foot, and that was it. So
Okay.
I was like, I'm going to come, I'm going to get a diploma, and I'm going to go back and just get a better job than most people with a Brazilian diploma. But after 1 year over here, after one semester, I met the locals at Lafayette, Louisiana, and I fell in love with them. And I was like, I'm never going to leave. I love it. But then I kept on playing beach volleyball during the off season and indoor and college because they didn't have NCAA beach volleyball at that time because I'm so old. But
Oh, stop.
and then,
How old are you?
hey,
How old are you?
I'm 43, almost 44.
Oh, I'm gonna be 42 in December, so
Yeah.
we're close.
Oh, me too. When is December?
December 2nd.
19.
So are you still a Sagittarius? You're not a
Mm-hmm.
Capricorn? Woo!
Yeah.
Sagittarius.
Sagittarius are the best.
So you decide you're gonna stay in Louisiana. Sorry, I get
Yeah,
sidetracked all the time.
yeah, no, that's fine. So yeah, I decided to stay in Louisiana, and I started playing tournaments all over Louisiana. And then I could tell, like, for women's level at that time, I was young, and sometimes I'd get slapped in the face by like older local ladies, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm losing to these ladies, and I would come fired up. And then it got to the point I started winning, if not all, like a lot of the tournaments, and I started playing men's open. So I started,
Oh,
challenge myself, and I went to a little tournament that everybody loves to go in Destin, Florida, called Footbuckers. So it's 4v4s. So it's really fun, and it happens twice a year, and it's like 250 teams. It's so cool. And then this lady approached me and said, "Hey, you're really good at volleyball. Like, you should go play on the AVP." And I go, "What is that?"
yeah.
And she goes, "Our professional tour." And I was like, "Well, I don't know if I can. Like, I don't know if I'm that good. Like, I just finished college. I was just done graduating." And she goes, "I'll tell you what. Let's go play in San Diego because my family is there. We have a place to sleep. So you just need to get your tickets." But I was literally just fresh out of, like, I only coached high school and club. I only had money to support myself. I was like, I'm a foreigner. I just graduated. I don't have a job. But, I don't know if I
Yeah.
have money even for the tickets. And then luckily, one of the kids that I coached in high school and club, her parents gave me like a cool bag, and inside the bag was tickets
Oh, I
for me
just
to
got
go to my
covered.
first for my
Oh,
first AVP. So I
can you
went
imagine
there.
if they didn't do that? Like those acts of service, that is so awesome. I'm assuming you're still in touch with those people.
Oh yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, like,
yeah.
what imagine where your life would be now had that act of kindness wouldn't have taken place. That's
I
awesome.
don't know if I would have gotten there, right?
Yeah.
So I got over there, and the bug just bit me, and I was like, I want to do this forever.
Yeah.
I've always been passionate about my volleyball, but I just didn't know I was getting good. I didn't know I was good, and I was never good. And like for 4 years, I was never good on the tour, even though my my path in the professional level was still faster than most. Like in 4 or 6 tournaments, I went from qualifying to being the main draw, be a ranked player. That's really hard back when and then now. So, but I didn't never saw that. I only saw, like, I need to get better. I need to get better, but like in a really healthy way. I
Yeah.
wasn't desperate. And
That's
for me,
funny
it
that
was,
you do you see that? Like, when you look back now, do you see that you were actually an excellent player? Like, it's interesting that just your mindset was like always get better, but it's just funny how sometimes we perceive ourselves as less than, or some people over perceive they're better
yeah,
than they are. But
yeah.
do you look back and go, man, I was actually pretty good. How did I not see that?
I look back, it's a little bit of both. So I look back and I see all the work that I had to put in, like feeling the work that I had to put in. And luckily, again, like once I decided to go professionally, it wasn't a pressure for me, but it's like, if I cannot pay my bills, I have to go back to Brazil. I
Yes.
didn't have money just to pay to play.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have to play so I could pay my bills. And I made that money. But it was some type of pressure, but I never felt that way. And I'm in the era when Misty and Carrie were winning 100 matches in a row. we didn't have a chance to play like nowadays to maybe get a first or semifinals or or definitely not a final. So for us it's like, let's see how far we go into the tournament, and like if you get fifth it's like going to the finals when you're up and comer.
Yeah.
Back in my day, because there was all guaranteed, the top four
Yeah.
teams were the top 14, nobody beat them, and then there were 9 Olympians in the top 8. So nobody gave you a good game, like, oh, here you go, I don't feel good, here's your, like, I just didn't play well, but everybody played well all the time,
Yeah.
right? So I've always seen myself less than, but like, hey, but I'm right here, you snooze you lose, I
Yeah.
was ready to like, I
Kind of
don't,
the
I'm gonna
underdog. You had
continue.
nothing to lose, right?
Yeah,
And everything to
yeah,
prove.
I'm gonna continue to play as hard as I can to see that day that is gonna come. But then there are parts that's like, wow, my finishes were really good, my results were pretty good, and my joke was like, man, I played against all the Olympians, and how cool is that? Everybody that I idolized or I just like was so inspired by, they became my friends, and but like this is, I feel that's probably the biggest reason why I never felt like I truly made it all the way. But I know that my journey is very awesome, because I was surrounded by the greatest players of all time.
I love it.
It's and I wouldn't change for it, nothing in my journey, because I everything that I learned from them, everything that I learned from playing against them, from watching them play, being around them, talking to them, having conversations, like mentorship, like I it's something that I
You
never thought that I would have access to those people.
you seem like you have a very grateful heart. Like you can tell you're very appreciative. Were there ever moments now again throughout your career where you had moments of uncertainty or doubt, or where you were like, you know what, I'm packing it in, I'm heading home, forget this? Or were you always lucky enough to just be like, you just kept going with whatever came your way and you
Yeah.
were able to navigate it that way and just roll with the punches? Or
Yeah, I think like my wife always says you did life by yourself.
Mm,
So I've always had this like, keep on going, if something's gonna happen, just put your head down and keep on working. Good things happen to good people, right? Like,
yeah,
so I never felt like, oh my God, this is so stressful, I might quit.
yeah,
I don't remember even going to practice and feeling like, "Ah, I just don't want to be here today.
yeah.
You know, I made it felt like sleepy before going to lift, but like I remember going to practice, it was like, so cool and so
May-
awesome.
Maybe it's a Sagittarius thing because I was that way when I played as well. It didn't really hit me till after the fact, but okay. So you have this great playing career. You transitioned to the coaching side. Did you struggle with the transition, or were you ready?
So fun fact is like when I graduated high school, my club in Brazil, they said, "Hey, would you like to coach the we call the school of volleyball, like just like a funnel of whatever age and level to see if we can get any talent to go into the real club, right?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, for sure." So I was 18, I started coaching,
So it's just
and
always
then
something you did on the side, anyways.
I came, yeah, when I came to America on my freshman spring semester, I was already coaching club, and then I started coaching high school and club. So I've always coached my entire life. What happened was right around 2012, I think, possibly 14, the AVP tour started going under. Well, it went under in the 2010, but then there were other tours that were kind of like sustaining our livelihood, I guess. And I started coaching more, and I opened a club over here. My wife got a head coaching job over here in St. Pete at Eckerd College, and nothing better than starting a club for recruiting. At
Yeah.
that time, we had indoors and beach. Now we're just beach. So I started coaching and running a club. It was like part of my income because volleyball wasn't giving me as much income like it used to, and it was just like it was always cool to coach. I've always loved coaching. I've always loved sharing knowledge. A lot of people will come in the tour. This other tour that we used to play. It's like, wow, like you really tell people what to do to be better? Like you play against them, and I'm like, if they get better, I get better. Then I
Mm,
have to learn how to be
love it.
their next better level. And luckily, I guess it was just from like Misty May. I Oh my gosh, every time I talk about her, I can't thank her enough. She picked me up one day. Hey, can you come over here? My husband is playing Atlanta. We had a tournament. She helped me fly me in like a few days earlier. I was training me and her dad, and I'm like,
I love it.
You
I
know, but
love
playing
it.
it cool. And then she like, no, look, you're doing this and this, you're doing this and this, try this and this. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like, if Missy is telling it, helping me, who am I not to help other people? And
Yeah.
on top of that, she's so humble and so, she's such an incredible person. She would be like, Pri, can you take a look and see if I'm doing this wrong? And I'm like, what? Like,
You
like
know,
just to
we all need that coach. We all need that mirror, right? What I think is
yeah.
really cool about that caliber of athletes is they really realize there's only one them, and you can give all the tips and tricks to someone else, but like you're still going to elevate your game because like you said you're elevating there. So when I talk a lot about like having the winner's mindset, and when you were sharing that, I was just like, oh, this is what a culture to breed. And do you feel like that's been your magic? I watched a video of you. There was a YouTube interview. I think it was on the Bulls page, but they were asking you about like your technique and how you bring in like a bit of the Brazil format as well as you marry it with the US format. Um, is that kind of your secret sauce? That's kind of what you're known for because you're kind of going outside the box with that, or have other coaches adapted it, or what's
Mhm.
happened there? Or is that kind of
Um,
just your own little
I think one of my strengths is the mindset part of the game,
Mhm.
and helping guide these girls are always young female players. They're always transitioning every year from 16, 15 till they graduate college. Every year they like a completely different person, right? We
Yeah.
kind of like minute, like when we're older, it takes us a few years to do another leap and like, oh, look at
Yeah.
me. I'm doing something new. But with them, every year is so important. And I think I'm really good at helping them be more comfortable. One, being more comfortable who they are, establishing good values and standards,
Mm.
and consistency. So my players know I'm not going to come at practice one day moody,
Mm.
right? I'm not just going to come moody. Like they're not going to, so they feel free to, like, they're not, they respect me. And like, let's say if they're teenagers, obviously they're like, oh, I don't know if I can talk to Pre, but that's normal. But the ones that learn, they're like, hey, that's Pre. And like, you can go talk to her and she will understand. And like, so try to create this culture where one, they understand themselves. I hold them to the highest standards, but I always front load them. It's like, hey, remember, I have to do this. This is how, my wife said that a lot too. Like, this is how I love. I love you by putting you at your highest standards, for reminding you our values and pushing you to be the best you can be. And being super consistent at that. There's no one day we're kind of like don't care about it. One day I'm like mad about it. One day I'm not okay. Like,
Yeah.
so I think being able to connect with them at this level and apply the game while teaching these life lessons. That's what I always say. Like, volleyball is just the channel. I get to teach life
Mhm.
lessons through my sport.
Oh, I love that because that's something I'm very passionate about too. Now, if I came to you and I was an athlete who was kind of struggling, I've got, great talent, but, whether I've been sidelined by an injury or whatnot, what would be your advice to me? Because I think about the athletes that are struggling in silence when I think about the topic of these interviews, and it's not necessarily life after sports. It's life after sports as we know it. Because I talk to athletes that are now in a wheelchair and they've gone on to go to the Paralympics or whatever. They've
Mm-hmm.
done phenomenal things. And that's the strength of their headspace and their mindset. And it's not about just having a positive saying, I am
Mm-hmm.
this or I am that. It's really that ingrained culture piece. And I think you nailed it when you said consistency, because when you show up enough in a certain way, people buy in and they trust you. So they know my leader's consistent, and so it calls them out to be consistent. But if I came to you and I was like, Pre, I am struggling to connect with, the best part of myself, what would you tell them? What would be like the top 3 things that you would say, this is what you need to do, come back to me after you've done this? Or what would be your 3 things that you would say, this is what you need to do, let's get you back to a peak headspace and then let's see where you're at, type thing? What would you say?
Yeah, well, number one, I always ask them, like, where's that coming from? You know,
Mm,
like, where do you think that's coming from? What has happened that you feel that way? You know how you have players that struggle communicating with coaches because, oh, I had a coach that was so bad. I was like, well, you're in a new, like, you started a new book for your volleyball life. So those pages are gone. You need to start rewriting, like, I do you trust me? I know you do, but
yeah.
I trust my coach. Like little things that you're gonna have to work. But we talk about like I talk about it like life is not fair. And I can't tell you what you want to hear all the time. So, but I will tell you, life is not fair. But I tell you what, if you put work in and you just wait, like for when players are learning a new skill, say, hey, reps times time equals experience. So you're not going to be good now, you're going to be good later. So if you're going through a hard time, you still have to physically and like do action, like you have to have action into trying to put yourself in a better place, whether that is through rehab, mental help, with whoever. But like, we're going to try to figure out what do you think you need. But meanwhile, you have to do your own, some type of like, I need to take care of myself too, and do homework about these things for me to get out of the situation. And saying like, we can have like, you can be upset, like somebody got hurt. It sucks. Like no athlete is going to be like, oh, I got hurt and I feel great. Nobody's going to think like that. That's not human.
No.
But like, as soon as you feel like you're moping around, like give yourself like, okay, this is super serious. I need an hour to get this out of my system. And you just, whatever you need to do to mope around, but then get up and do something. Like just don't spend an entire day like that. We try to navigate because everybody's different, right? I have kids that I can just be like, right, super strong on
chip,
and they turn around quick, and a lot of other kids that need a little extra love.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that, it's not a cookie cutter approach, right? It's just, again, you've built a foundation. What I'm hearing is the consistency part is huge because it builds self-trust, and you've got a presence, and you don't have to be screaming to know that you mean business. Like, don't waste my time because I'm not wasting yours. And you like, my whole thing is about life's currency is showing up, and like, you constantly show up. If I'm expected to be here, you're expected to be here, right? So we talked a little bit off camera about around COVID. You thought like you said you were thinking of retiring earlier, and then here you are. What can you tell us a little bit about that experience and just kind of what headspace you were in and what forced you to keep going? Or
so like COVID came, my goal was to play either 20 years of volleyball professionally alone or retired at 40. And COVID came right before I turned 40.
Okay.
And then and I was still like, I was coming back. I kind of had like some retirements and come back, some retirements and come back. And then I started training girls to go qualify. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go and play too, and I get to watch them, and I'm gonna play for fun. And then I started qualifying again. I'm like, oh my God, I'm qualifying, So I'm gonna continue to play until I
it's
can.
Hard. It's hard when I go to the hockey rink. I want to put on my skates and just get out there and do it too, right? It's hard. And then I'm like, oh, my body's not doing what it used to do. I guess I'll set this one out.
Yeah. So when I started qualifying, I was like, oh, cool. So I'm like, every year I was like, okay, I'm going to train a little more. I'm going to train. So by the time I was 38 or 39, 2019, I think I was like in really good shape, like much better shape, and especially as an older player. And I was like, okay, like 2020, I was this close of like qualifying all of them, doing really well again, getting good results on the tour. But then COVID hit, and then the AVP came back with 3 tournament series and a very small main draw, like with like, I don't know, like 12 teams, I don't know, 16. So that cut everybody out. There's no like trying to make into the tournament. That was it. And nobody else could get in or out. So it kind of like forced me to retire because who knew when we're going to come back. So I was like, you know what, I need to shift my mindset and like really run this program over here. This club.
Right there. Like, so you've said a couple things, and you're very resilient. I can tell, hearing you talk about your wife, say like, you've always been by yourself, which, as much as that sucks, it has made you so resilient that you adapt, right? And you just said to yourself, okay, you just self-coached yourself. I got to shift my mindset. And I try to get a lot of athletes to realize that, like, the quicker you can transition, the longer the quicker you can get out of your self-loathing, you get into action on doing what you really want to do and becoming and stepping into that future self that you strive to be. Did you cultivate that? That was cultivated at a young age in Brazil, wasn't it?
Probably.
Yeah. Because you had you had to fend for yourself, or where did that come from? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was the first granddaughter out of my other 2 male. And then my grandpa was like the man's man, and he did all the sports. So we always played together, and I always had to keep up.
Yeah.
And that's why I was so good at keeping up, everywhere I went. I'm very adaptable. So I
I
think
love
that was
that.
definitely from growing up. And we were like, I lived in the city of Rio, but my grandpa had a ranch an hour and a half from Rio. So I grew up city girl and like, I got all the street smart, but I also grew up like really country girl, like running everywhere
Sounds like
barefoot
you
and going
got the
up.
best of everything.
It was awesome. I had a great childhood because of that. But like we had all this like I gotta get, I don't know, maybe grandpa's attention or just keep up because we all became so competitive.
Yeah.
We always lost to him, so we're trying to see who could beat each other to win on something, right?
I love that. No, you said a couple keywords like shift my mindset, adaptable, all this stuff. I could see it even just when you hear the language that someone uses. I'm inspired. I'm just picking it up as you're saying it. So it's pretty
Yeah,
amazing. These girls are really lucky to have you dispensing your knowledge on them and showing them how to shift quickly. And I've heard your
yeah.
interview about you talked a lot about grit and resilience in the one where you like they were asking you how do you develop all these collegiate players. What's been
Hmm.
your biggest obstacle there? So sorry, we were in COVID and we kind of went off, and now I'm back to the maybe finish the COVID part. And then I'm curious just how you transition your athletes to become more resilient.
Yeah, so I shift my mindset and like, hey, new goal, right? New goal is like we're gonna grow this business, and I'm gonna help continue to train these not only younger players, but now I had older players trying to make it professionally. We're gonna do that, and then I know I knew I could do that really well.
Yeah.
But I'm one of those athletes that I loved practice. I love the grind. People
You
call
like to
me
put the
crazy. Like
reps in.
I just love that. It was like meditating to me doing all those reps.
You hyper
So,
focus? Do you hyper focus really well? Like when you have a
uh,
goal, do you like obsess over it?
yes,
Yeah. Yeah,
yes,
me too.
yes. But I'm also very good at like forgetting things
Oh,
and disconnecting when needed. But yeah,
that's
there is
good.
like I always make fun and I tell all my players like I my volleyball life was always like I got it straight. And then it's like the real world that I'm like, ooh, I got to grow up. I got to become an adult and be more responsible.
So,
But that,
okay, there that was that a transition for you? Like when you were kind of like
yeah,
trying to figure out, okay,
it
because
was
people,
hard.
athletes, we notice a big one when I talk to athletes. It's an identity crisis when they leave sport and they don't know because that's all they've known. You've managed to stay on the coaching side, which does fill that void of as an athlete and the competitive side. But when you talk about the real world, what are some things that made you, well, what did you challenge yourself on so that you could, um, I guess,
So yeah, running
blend
a
in?
club. So I wasn't just coaching, I was running a club. So
Okay.
I always tell people like I was just a volleyball player. I only knew to save money to eat, pay my bills, travel, play volleyball,
Yeah.
work out, right? So I started to have to like manage more people, talk to parents, being organized in the business, paperwork,
Yeah.
like I was like I was never taught
Paperwork.
that. So I had to learn all those things like with, some guidance from my wife who has a full-time job. It's not like, but that's what I needed to grow. But, so putting that, is like one of the first times where feeling not as good was uncomfortable, where with volleyball I was comfortable,
Yeah.
so I had to, and that's when I used to tell my players like my volleyball life is like, guys, is on point, but my real life is like, ooh, I don't want to do dishes,
Yeah.
and then I have to think, wait, if Misty will call me to play pickup, would I go? Yes. Gosh, I gotta go do dishes. Like that's how I help
Exactly.
myself accountable. Like
Yeah.
if I were to do it for volleyball, then I have to do it in real life.
Oh, that's a good tip. That's a great way to look at it because it's so easy to put us out in that box, right? And then not want to, we want to ignore. Because one thing we talk a lot about with athletes is like when I played, all I had to do was show up and play. Everything was taken care of for us. Everything. Our schedule
Mhm.
was made. We had food when we were on the road. We got to walk in and pick our equipment. Like we were very, very, very lucky. So that's interesting. What would be, what would you say you struggle with? Because you sound so
I
positive.
just
I just know
I
you're
just
not,
miss the
no one's perfect.
game.
You miss the
I
game.
miss the grind. And
Yeah.
then when I played like even though like I'm Brazilian fiery, but like I had so much fun playing. I play for the for the crowd. I would wave. Or, I'm one of those like show women or whatever. So I miss that so much. It's just something that it was fun. But
Yeah.
I definitely miss like training and stuff.
Yeah.
That was hard. That was hard not to have that anymore, not to I love traveling. I wasn't traveling, I was here. you know, most of the time for like 3 or 4 years, I didn't travel, you know, like all that stuff. I just stayed here and coached the entire time, which it was good. And it was like filling my cup, but I really had to like, hey, you know, like you got to figure it out how to get your understand your purpose better, you know. And I
Yeah,
do, like that's when I
I
started shifting the
dude,
purpose too.
yeah, well, I love that part because the purpose is so important because when you think about a pro athlete too, they're used to so much external validation. Like you just said, you got the crowd, they're, you're signing autographs, people are cheering you. You go home, your cup is full. So what do you do when the cheering stop? And you said, so you dig into your purpose. Would that be your, like you just mentioned that? So do you do,
Yeah.
I talk a lot about like meditation, visualization, journaling. What do you do to fill your cup when no one's around? What is
I
your thing?
used to do a lot of journaling when I was younger. And then I did when I was up and comer as a volleyball professional. Then I started doing it a little bit again like 2 years ago, but I haven't done it like consistently. But it's something that I know it's there for me.
Yeah.
Meditation comes and goes. My mind sometimes. It's
I never thought I could sit. I was like, I'm always like, "Da, da, da." You'll even see me
yeah.
talk and I'll be like fidgeting and I'm like,
Yeah,
I've
so
always got to
we
be
try to
moving.
put it at night, and then she's like, "I don't know what you meditated. Like it's 2 minutes and you fell asleep." It's like I tried, and I'm like Zen. Yeah, I went to sleep Zen. That's
It's the effort that matters. Okay.
yeah. So for me, at first it wasn't healthy, but I kept myself busy.
Mm,
You know, but
just distract.
that's when another struggle started because I kept myself busy, and I wanted to do Optimum, my club, better and better and better, and I started overworking myself, and
Were you
it was
burned out a
about
bit?
2 years ago. No, I don't burn out. I love my job. It was my friends had to have a sit down with me, like an intervention. Said,
Okay.
"You're working way too hard." Like great friends, "You're working way too hard. You look terrible. You know, like you don't have your sass, you don't have your energy, you don't have your smile. Like
Oh,
this is not
wow.
healthy. Like you need to figure it out. Like you need to do something." And then it got to the point that like one day I just passed out in the kitchen
You
because
passed out? Yeah.
so we, you
See,
know,
that's one thing too, your body, if you don't stop, your body will tell you. Like for me, it took breast cancer to really crack open what I was avoiding dealing with and all the things that I really wanted to do. But I always tell people, I'm like, don't wait to go through breast cancer to have your aha. I mean, I feel like with life though, you kind of need
mhm.
the wake up call. If I mean, we can listen to all the advice that we want, but if we don't follow it. But so what
Yeah.
was that like for you? You fainted, and then what was that awareness? Were you like, oh shit, I better
Well,
slow down?
yeah, so we're trying to shift because it's hard. I've always wanted Optimum to be like a methodology where people know like we're gonna go over there and coaches are gonna be great. But
Yeah.
because I'm growing and I was the only coach for the majority of the especially high level teams, everything is like I want to train with Pre, I want to train with
Yeah.
Pre, and like Pre
There's
can
only
train
one
every single
pre.
person
Yeah.
in the world. And then I'm like, wow, I need to really continue to shift and make Optimum even better. I have a friend that she started last year, a little over a year and a half ago, and she started running Optimum and making it a company and like on a
Wow.
whole other level. And we've grown like double this year. It's
That's
incredible,
awesome.
and we've become more aware. I started the year coaching just 2 sessions, you know, 2 groups versus 5. I was
Yeah.
coaching 8 to 10 hours a day
Yeah.
all year long. We don't have holidays. We train all year long.
Yeah.
So,
I had a fitness studio for 7 years and I would do like a
mm,
gazillion classes a day. And I was always the one that you get called in when somebody can't show. And then, I
yeah.
get it. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so yeah, that kind of like obviously helped too. And then slowly it was like, wow, this, yes, I definitely feel better. In fact, so when I got the USF job, I was in a place I was like, wow, this is really working in terms of Optimum. Because like, what are you gonna do with Optimum? Like, if you were to ask this last year, I would be like, I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, it's in great hands. It's been running like it's meant to run. I have the
Love it.
majority of like I have the 2 best groups, and you know, and we have a funnel, and like my hours are great. And I was like, it couldn't be any better timing to be hired to be, you know, a college coach where I can continue to have my club running, no problem.
That's exciting. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, you're such an inspiration. Again, this is probably like half a rap sheet that I have on Pre about all the things that you've accomplished.
It's a
But
lot of little things.
no, it's no, but you know what? That's what compounds into the big thing. And for me, what I'm most inspired by is how you are mentoring these other athletes, and what a gift it is that you're giving to people, especially when it comes to mindset. I am very passionate about training athletes from the neck up. We spend so much time on the body. So just like you, I focus on mindset and resiliency development. That's why I was so attracted to you as an athlete and as a coach. And I was like, I gotta get this girl on my series. We gotta chat. And it's so awesome the more people that I meet to know that you're paying it forward, and you can tell you're resilient. Like, you're even with a smile, I fainted on the floor, and then my friends had to intervene. Like, it's amazing. Sometimes people, just the way they're wired, and because of your life experience, you can tell you're resilient. And you've said a key words: adapt, shift, you know, you take time out, deal with it what you need to, but then get back into action. I mean, all the things that help people move forward. So
But what people don't know is, like, when we struggle, I did life alone. So I struggle alone, right? Even my wife
suffering
was
in
like,
silence.
yeah. So I went through some depression as well, especially being overworked and not know all that stuff together. But, I always said that too, professionalism, right? I showed up, and, like, my players didn't know I was depressed. I
Um,
showed up. I showed up because to me that's so important, that consistency, and to show them, like, obviously I always tell them, like, obviously there's something hard in your life. I always tell them, like, are you okay to continue to practice?
I
And if
love
they
that.
say yes, I'm like, today's a great day to practice being this way and having a good practice.
Yeah. I
You may not be
remember,
as vocal, like I always talk to them, but, like, if you choose to practice, then you have to, what I mean? I'm going to hold you accountable, like being focused and, like, in a gentle way, like,
yeah,
still them understand, like, if you're going to choose to show up, here's what I understand. You may not be laughing, you may not be, like, calling super loud, but, like, just do your job well. You don't
yeah.
have to be ahead of the group. You can be, like, just with the crowd, just doing your job. And then if they say no, I can't, I was like, go home. Like, it's okay, go home.
Yeah. And that's where they feel taken care of. I remember when we were going through, we had two fitness locations. The second one was not ideal, and we ended up going through a bankruptcy, and no one knew. I'd be crying in my car. I had a full studio to go teach at my other location, bawling in my car, put on a straight face, walk in, welcome everyone, because I always felt too like you're not here to hold me. You're coming into my fitness studio. I'm here to be a break in your day, and then we'd lock
Yeah.
up, I'd clean up, and then I'd be alone in my car again. And I talk a lot about suffering in silence. And part of a book that I'm writing about my life after sports. And as athletes, I feel like because we are used to also, when you're in the limelight, you have your shit together, people aren't looking at you as the one, you're the one that they're looking up to. So it's kind of like, you show no weakness. But the suffering, I'm really grateful that you said that, because to anyone watching, know that you're not alone. There's so many athletes that I've spoken to that suffer in silence, and find someone that you are comfortable in speaking to, because community, I've heard from a number of athletes, ex-pros that I've spoken to, they talk the importance of community. So when you're suffering in silence, obviously you have your wife who's probably your rock, but how do you get out of that cycle? What do you do to get out of that?
Well, this one was one of the deepest depressions I've had and longest. So I looked for help, and I have an incredible holistic therapist, and she's awesome. I love her to death,
Oh,
and she
good.
helped me so much.
That's awesome. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, the help's there. Don't ever be too afraid to ask for help. We talk about that a lot too. I mean, you can't,
I try
uh,
to tell my kids that too. The
yeah,
number one thing you need to learn when you go to college is to learn to ask for help.
yeah, for sure.
When you get there, understand who's going to be your mentors, where you can get mental health mentorship for school, right? Academic advisors, like whatever kind of help you need. Make sure you know where to go and do it.
Yeah, do it. That's the key. Don't just sit there. Oh, so many amazing nuggets. Is there anything that maybe I haven't asked? You can tell you wear your heart in your sleeve. You can tell you're a fabulous coach, and you can tell you're very passionate about it. So much information to gather from you. Is there any one last thing that, if there is an athlete sitting there suffering in silence or struggling, that you would really hope that if they understand or get one thing away from this interview, that they walk away with?
I hope that, yes, they don't suffer alone, right? Nowadays, there are so many, like, communities and some 800 number that you could call, Facebook or Instagram groups and accounts people like you, who's always willing to help. And I have a cousin that at 14, she tried to commit suicide. And when I went back to Brazil, it was like 6 months after that. And then she told me, I heard of it and I was waiting for her to tell me. So she told me. And her life was rough. And then I go, look, I can't promise you like things are going to be great all the time, but we'll never know if you don't try. Right.
Mhm.
So I was like, I will help you in anything and everything I can, but I just can't be present because I was in college
Yeah.
in Lafayette, but like I will always be here to help you. You can always count on me. And I'm a jokester, even like at tough,
Yeah.
like deep
Me,
moments like that. So it's like, but
me
you need to be
too.
alive. You need to be
Yeah,
alive,
me
otherwise
too.
I can't
Yeah.
help you.
I know.
Yeah.
I do that too. Well, actually, that's the whole reason we started this series, because two friends of ours were found deceased in their homes, that couldn't get kind of past that transition phase. And it was like, we got to start this conversation. And it's been had. I've ran into Emmy Award winner Kurt David. He's been on my series, and he started these interviews back in 2009, and he won an Emmy for it in the glory days. Who knew? The glory
Aw.
days. And we spoke, and the transitions are real. They're very much a part of our lives.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for contributing to this conversation. Just to show how amazing and approachable you are, I just reached out to her on social media, Pri, and she said, sure. Wasn't even a question. We just had to find the right time. So I'm grateful that you also put up with me while I tried to go live for an hour before we actually jumped on here. So thank you. That just shows you're gritty
Yeah.
too, because I was ready to try another 50 times, but I should go tuck my kids in. But thank you so much. I
Oh
can't
yeah,
wait to
for
watch
sure.
what happens. I've heard on your other interviews that I've watched online, that your goal and to gain the exposure and what you want to do for the club. And I think they couldn't have a better person in the role. Just leadership is a trickle down effect, and they've got someone great at the top looking over things. So
Oh,
congratulations. And I'm excited to
thank
watch
you.
you grow and cheer you on. I'm from Canada, so we'll
I'm
be
talking to
watching.
some Canadians.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, everyone. Episode 30, and I gotta look at how to pronounce her last name. Pri Piantadosi-Lima. Did I
Perfect.
butcher it? Piantadosi-Lima.
Perfect.
um, Thank you so much. It's been a
Yeah.
pleasure.
No,
And
thank you.
rate
I
her,
love the
buy her,
talk.
follow her on all her social, and let's get more exposure for the program. So thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Yeah, for sure.